Part 75. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 743. There are not many people in Xinjiang Prefecture, and Mu Shi's appearance is different from ordinary people. He often sells prey on his shoulders. It is very easy to find him. Sure enough, the boy found out that Mu Shi is from Linchan village within 2 months. He was working as a clerk in the town, and when he saw that Mu Shi brought his second sister out of the mountains to live in Linchan village, he sent a letter back to the owner. At that time, Shu Qing was busy building a good relationship with his family, buying property and settling down, so he couldn't spare any time to deal with this matter, so he just asked someone to send money to the young man and let him continue to watch, as long as Mu Shi and the second young lady honestly if you stay in Xinjiang Mansion, don't do anything that damages the Shu family's reputation. It has been 3 years since Shu Qing finally gained a firm foothold in Linan City and freed up his hands to deal with this matter. At that time, Mu Yangling could run all over the place. The boy had also settled down in Xinjiang Mansion, so he was soft-hearted after all. The letter to Shu Qing implied that Mu Shi and Shu Wanyang were honest and might stay in Linchan village for the rest of their lives. After all, it was his own daughter. Since he couldn't hinder him, Shu Qing would naturally not kill her, so he just ordered the servant to keep watching them. As long as they don't do anything that hinders Shu's family, it will be fine if they don't leave the Xinjiang mansion. There is no mention of helping my daughter who is struggling to make ends meet. The boy felt disappointed, but he did it anyway. Although his wife and children are in Xinjiang Prefecture, there are still parents and relatives in Shu's house. All the time they lived in peace, regardless of whether the Mu family was rich or not, the servant never showed up, and it was naturally impossible for Mu Shi to find out until the Golden Soldiers raided Xinjiang Mansion. The boy died in the war, and his wife knew that he was a servant of the Shu family in Linan City. In-laws, so the boy's wife asked someone to write a letter to explain the situation here, and took a lot of money to ask someone to send it to the Shu family. Shu Qing only noticed a sentence in the letter: many people fled south for their lives. Many people, does that include the Mu family? Would Shu Wanyang choose to come here to ask them for help because the Shu family is in Linan City? Not only Shu Qing had this worry, but also Shu Mingxiang. At that time, he had just passed the examination and was about to take part in the general examination. When people meet, they don't need her to speak, just her face, which is very similar to her mother's eldest sister, can make people think about it, and adding her name. Shu Mingxiang shuddered just thinking about it. Sifang's life in the capital is not easy. Although they have money, they have no power. At that time, Shu Qing was only a small official of the 1st and 5th ranks, and he was still related to the Shu family. He spent money on it, and he was not born as a second-rank jinchi. At that time, Sifang needed a second-rank jinchi too much. Shu Mingxiang is Sifang's hope, so Shu Mingxiang just showed a worried look in front of his father, and Shu Qing automatically figured out a solution for him. Let the Mu family disappear completely, or make the Mu family inseparable from Xinjiang Mansion. The former is very difficult to do, and they have to wait for their people to pass before they can kill people. It is not certain whether they can find people in troubled times, but Shu Qing, who happened to know that the Xieying of Xinjiang Prefecture was going to expand the recruitment of military households, quickly thought of the latter. Found a way. Let Mu Shi go to the army. As a member of the army, without connections or money, Mu Shi's entry into the military camp is almost a dead end. If nothing else, he will definitely be assigned to the vanguard camp. And there are many generals in the army who pretend to be military leaders. When they operate again, they will definitely make him unable to turn around from now on. The Mu family that lost Mu Shi still has a male, Mu Bowen. As long as there are still males, the military status cannot be revoked. Mu Bowen is weak and sick, and it is not certain whether he will grow up. Without Mu Shi, the Mu family will have no minions. Naturally, they will no longer be afraid of Xu Wanyang hindering them. Mrs. Xu also knew about this matter. Although she cried a lot for her daughter, it was nothing more than that. The Xu family fell into such a trap. But at this time, when it comes to investigation, of course Xu Mingxiang can't say that it was his father's idea. He can only take the matter on himself, but he really regrets it in his heart. Qi Ziyuan didn't even know about this line. If they knew that Mu Yangling was benevolent to Qi Heiran, how could they remember Mu Shi among the military households in Xieying? It's too late to say anything now. The fourth room of the Xu family was in a bleak mood. They thought it would end here, and they swallowed the biggest loss, but they didn't expect that they wanted to let it go, but Mu Yangling didn't want to. She came to Zhu Liang when she got home. Asked him to post a message to the Xu family, and she wanted to have a good talk with the head of the Xu family and Xu Cheng. Seeing that the princess was furious, Zhu Liang hurriedly responded respectfully, trotted out, and met the prince on the way. When Qi Heiran asked, he waved and said, "Don't send the post, wait until I go and talk to the princess." Qi Heiran didn't quite agree with Mu Yangling's appearance. He said, "You are a married woman, so you can't represent the Mu family. If you go, I'm afraid you will be humiliated by the Xu family. Those aristocratic families are very eloquent. There are still blog posts. That's why you can't go. No matter how the Xu family is, Bowen is also the grandson of the Xu family in terms of blood." He lowered his head and let him stand out. Didn't he push him to the forefront? And he lacked confidence. Then what do you say? Wait, Qi Heiran said, when the father-in-law comes, the father-in-law's surname is Mu, not Xu, and he has no blood relationship with the Xu family. At the beginning, the Xu family wanted to put his mother-in-law to death first, and then calculate his military status. It's a mortal enemy, no matter what he does, he is confident, and his father-in-law is a second-rank general, so he can overwhelm them with this status, and I will follow when the time comes. The master will not speak, just sitting there can overwhelm the Xu family. I can't get enough of my breath, and when the time comes, one will talk about one, and another will talk about two, and the Xu and Mu families will negotiate a good deal, so as not to be confused in the future." Qi Heiran took Mu Yangling's hand and sighed, "Even if father-in-law wants to guard the border, he will often go back to the capital in the future, and he will inevitably run into the Xu family, and he can't always avoid them, so let's solve the problem." Mu Yangling thought for a moment, nodded and said, "What you said is so reasonable, but I just can't bear it now. What should I do?" When she thought that Mrs. Xu actually forced her mother to kneel today, she became very angry. Her mother is so delicate and weak, when would she kneel down in such great grief? Qi Heiran. Looking at his angry wife, Qi Heiran felt that if she didn't let her vent, it seemed that he and his son would suffer. Qi Heiran hesitated and said, "It's impossible to beat the seniors of the Xu family, but this generation and the younger generation, as the princess of Rongjun, it should be possible for you to educate them." Seeing a faint smile on the corner of Mu Yangling's mouth, Qi Heiran said frightenedly, "But don't go too far, or the imperial censor will impeach." The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 744. Because they are going to participate in the canonization ceremony, the capital is very lively, and there is a third of joy in the bustle. In addition, the autumn is high and the air is crisp. The women in the official family's back house like to hold flower parties, birthday parties, poetry parties, and other parties, for the Xioxia family. There were quite a few people who sent posts, but none sent messages to Mu Yangling. Because everyone tacitly agrees that Mu Yangling is not sociable. Mu Yangling felt very wronged. She just habitually handed over the battlefield to Li Jinghua before, she really wasn't unsociable. But now those who want to block Xu's family can only go to these flower fairs and poetry fairs. As for the birthday party, they have a birthday party, so I am too embarrassed to destroy it. The daughters of the Ministry of Justice sent a post to the ladies in Beijing, asking everyone to go to Daming Mountain for an outing, and enjoy the chrysanthemums in Yangfu Temple by the way. Mu Yangling held the Beijing China banquet list in his hand, and finally pointed to this way, "This is suitable, will the Shu family go?" Li Chun bowed and said, "The Shu family is a family, so they will definitely be invited." Mu Yangling put down the list, then asked the Chen family for a post. The Shangshu of the Ministry of Punishment is surnamed Chen. Li Chun responded yes and didn't show up in person, but someone missed a word for the Chen family. The younger sister of Princess Rong Jun came to Beijing, and was worried that there would be no companions to play with. The Chen family immediately sent 3 invitations, which meant in addition to her own sister, Princess Rong Jun can also bring a few more people to accompany Miss Mu Er. Mu Yangling thought for a while, she really couldn't find anyone, but let Qijia go alone, 2 fists are hard to beat 4 hands, what should I do if I am bullied? Qi Heiran took the invitation away from her hand and said, "I will arrange it for you." The generals who came to Beijing to congratulate also brought their family members. Qi Heiran directly picked 2 of them to send the invitations. Both of them were Qi Ziyuan's subordinates and worked with Qi Heiran. Their daughters were in their prime, so they brought them to Beijing. This time he was looking for his in-laws' family, and he was worried that he would not be able to enter the social circle in the capital. This time he sent an invitation, and they couldn't wait for it. It's easy to just slap Shu's family in the face. Back then, the Shu family, Zhang family, Zhou family, and Qi family had a lot of grievances. Many people still remember that the emperor had to bear it for the sake of the country and the court, and continued to appoint the Zhang family and the Shu family, but the queen might not necessarily bear it. Because the queen has only one son so far, she has not been pregnant for a long time. It has long been rumored among the people that the queen was injured and seriously injured, and there is no possibility of conceiving again. Therefore, slapping the face of the Shu family can not only fulfill the promise of King Rongjun, but also please the queen. Why not do it? Mu Yangling went to see the imprisoned twins, and asked, "My sister asked you to do something. If you do it, I will release your restraint. How about it?" Bosi and Qijia's eyes lit up, and they asked, "What's the matter?" They immediately patted their chests and assured them, "Sister, don't worry, as long as you order, we can do it for you even if it's a mountain of swords or a sea of fire." Mu Yangling snorted and said, "You don't need to go up the mountain of swords or into the sea of fire." Mu Yangling sat on a chair, asked them to sit down, and sighed, "Your hot temper is the same as mine. You are young and don't think too much. This time I can temporarily bypass you, but next time you make such a mistake, you will definitely be killed. Severe punishment." Seeing the 2 pouting, Mu Yangling said, "Are you not convinced?" The dragon and phoenix said, "She bullied mother." Mu Yangling nodded, "I know, but do you know the consequences of beating them up? If we can't arrive in time to gag them, and they are bruised and swollen and their hair is scattered around, how serious the consequences will be. Old Mrs. Shu just needs to say, 'I am your grandmother,' and you beat your grandmother and aunt. Even if your life is not ruined, it will not be much better. This is the most basic ethics. Furthermore, the mother's life experience has been publicly known. The Shu family's reputation will be ruined, but the mother and father will also be pushed to the forefront." Seeing the confusion in the eyes of his younger siblings, Mu Yangling said shyly, "Father, she rescued my mother from bandits. We all know that my mother is innocent, but there is never a shortage of people in this world who speculate on others maliciously. There are many men and women in this world in the name of defending the Tao. Even if Shu Wanyang is an innocent victim, these people will force her to commit suicide with chaste and honesty. Just like the Shu family, their daughter was taken away. It's not about saving people, but when the daughter no longer exists and the daughter is rescued, they are not happy, and they don't go to hunt down those bandits, but feel that the daughter's life is a shame to the Shu family, so they must die. There are many such people even in modern times, let alone in this era. What Mu Yangling wants is for her family to be happy and happy. Now that she has a high position and power, is there no way to suppress the Shu family? Yes, but she didn't want to force them to die, because in that way, it would be her relatives who would be hurt in the end. But she must not let the Shu family use this to blackmail the Mu family, and what she gave was an attitude. What happened to Shu Wanyang was a sword without a hilt, with both sides of the sword point. On one side stood the Shu family, and on the other side stood the Mu family. It all depends on who is more ruthless and who has a stronger psychological quality. Then remove the sword. It's not easy for her to fight the Shu family's peers, but the twins are just right. But she hoped that they could understand more truths and know more about the stakes, instead of just rolling up their sleeves. This is a duel between two families, not a fight between children. Mu Yangling said, "We have to wait for Daddy to come to deal with this matter, but we can't let it go, lest the Shu family think that our Mu family is afraid of them and make more progress, but for the elders of the Shang Shu family, no matter what we do it's a bit unreasonable, so I can only hit the younger generation of the Shu family." Bosi and Kijia had bright eyes. Mu Yangling said, "I'm talking about fighting. I don't want you to fight, but to slap your face. Let the Shu family know that this matter is not over yet. The Mu family is not easy to bully." Kijia was full of pride, slapped the table, and shouted, "Sister, don't worry, I'm best at slapping faces." Mu Yangling glanced at her, but Kijia instantly felt that she was drenched in a basin of ice water, sat back on the chair, and said obediently, "We will fight as my sister tells us to." Mu Yangling said, "How do you want to fight? Roll up your sleeves and hit someone." Kijia blinked, speechless. Mu Yangling clapped his hands, and an old nanny came in from the door and saluted Mu Yangling respectfully. Mu Yangling raised his chin, nodded to Kijia, and said, "Tell the second girl, Jingzhou girls like me usually slap people in the face. It's good, I didn't want you to learn this in just 2 days, I just let you understand that slapping people in the face is not slapping people in the face, and you have to consider the consequences of what you do." Mu Yangling's eyes turned to Bosi, and he was slightly satisfied when he saw him standing upright with his chest out and his stomach in. As for Bosi, you are much simpler. The younger generations of the Shu family are useless in martial arts, and you don't have to do anything by then, directly provoke them to let them race horses or shoot arrows with you, and then use your ability to trample them under your feet. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 745. Kijia looked at her second brother with glowing eyes, feeling very envious, and really wanted to take over his job. What should I do? With a wave of Mu Yangling's hand, the old mother behind her smiled and came forward to tell Kijia a story. Mu Yangling turned and left. She still had a lot of things to deal with. But Jia is about to go crazy. She doesn't know what the old mother said. She hides murderous intentions in a simple sentence, and she doesn't swear. When she was in the Northland, she was cute and cute. Everyone liked her very much. Who would dig a hole for her like this? And even if there was a quarrel, just roll up your sleeves and quarrel, at worst, fight, but Kijia felt that if she played the front, she would definitely be killed in seconds. The old mother smiled and said, "Second girl, don't worry, the Empress has found 2 helpers for you, and Miss Kuyu will go with you. As long as you listen to Miss Kuyu's advice, you will be fine, you can show hostility to them, you don't need to hide and fight with them." Kijia rolled her eyes and said, "That means I can say that they are ugly, have bad conduct, and have bad family education." The old mama twitched her lips and nodded. "Anyway, you don't know how to say some more cryptic words, so it's better to directly state the purpose of this trip. If you can't make a detour, just go straight to the center. Although the second girl is young, everyone will not take her words seriously, but she can let everyone see the attitude of the Mu family and Rongjun Palace. This is a heavy blow to the Shu family. What happened to the fourth room of the Shu family, the little girls and gentlemen of the Shu family didn't know, even the head of the Shu family didn't know about these things about the fourth room. They only knew that Mrs. Shu was ill, and it seemed that the illness was not serious. Although it was strange that a person who was still alive and well 2 days ago suddenly became seriously ill, but as long as he thought of Mrs. Shu's age, he didn't think it was strange. As he got older, he would naturally have more problems. So people in my family didn't take this matter to heart, but they still had to do the visits that should be done. Even if the female family members were blocked from the door, everyone only thought that Sifang was worried that Mrs. Shu was tired and didn't want them to bother her. Many people think that Shu Mingxiang is really filial. But when the girls and boys of the Shu family came back crying, everyone didn't think so. It was the boys who filed the complaint first. Although there was always competition within the aristocratic family, they were always united externally, and the Shu family was the same. So when one person receives a post, he always likes to go out together with brothers and sisters. The 5 boys ran back with livid faces and said that the Shu family was being targeted. In my heart, when I heard that the other party was the 10-year-old younger brother of Princess Rongjun, I hated iron, and said, "You can't even compare with a 10-year-old child. What use are you? We have no grudges with the Mu family. It's probably a coincidence. Let's forget about it this time. Next time you meet Mr. Mu you have to get along well. 10-year-old kid, you can't coax him." But in the evening, the girls from the Shu family came back crying, and 3 of them were still in a state of embarrassment, with bruises on their faces. Knowing that it was the 10-year-old younger sister of Princess Rongjun who did it, the elders of the Shu family fell silent. When the head of the Shu family heard the report, a cold light flashed in his eyes, and he asked, "Which one of you offended Princess Rongjun or the Mu family?" The people below looked at each other in blank dismay, and finally everyone looked at De Fang and Si Fang unanimously and said, 5 years ago, the Empress gave birth prematurely. "Shut up," the patriarch of the Shu family slapped the table, glared at them angrily and said, "You should have rotted in your stomach a long time ago, but you dare to mention it. It was all 5 years ago, let alone Princess Rongjun. She's not the queen, so why would she target our Shu family 5 years later?" The patriarch of the Shu family frowned, and said, "The surnames of those who came forward are all Mu, so this matter must be related to the Mu family." He looked down sharply, and asked, "Which of you has offended Mu Shi recently?" Shu Qing's heart hung tightly, and his face remained unchanged. The patriarch of the Shu family looked around and snorted coldly when he couldn't see where he was going. "Stay back and think about it." When Shu Qing returned to the 4th room, he couldn't help but smash the things in the study. Shu Mingxiang hurried in, and asked with a pale face, "Father, what should I do?" "The main reason is to ask. What else can we do? As soon as we investigate this matter, we will find out that your mother just went to the silk and satin village, and she fell ill when she came back, and the Shu family was targeted." Shu Qing was so angry that he kept this matter from his family. "Afraid that my family would take hold of the handle and threaten them, I didn't expect that he had to hand the handle to my family at this time." Shu Qing gritted his teeth with hatred for Shu Wanyang and Mu Yangling. "As for my family, the news came back quickly. In the last 10 days, only the old lady of the 4th bedroom had the opportunity to meet with Princess Rongjun and members of the Mu family. 3 days ago, the old lady of the 4th bedroom went to the silk and satin village. Princess Rongjun also took her mother and younger siblings to the silk village that day. Interestingly, in the silk village that day, the twins of the Mu family seemed to have caught 2 female thieves in the backyard, but the younger one went to the yamen to inquire. I have never sent anyone to the yamen. The family members of the Shu family go out in the capital, but Princess Rongjun doesn't go out often, so it's easy to check the chances of them meeting. Sifang, the patriarch of the Shu family, squinted his eyes and asked, I remember that the empress gave birth prematurely 5 years ago. Afterwards, the aunt who married Sifang took Mingxiang's daughter-in-law to Qi's house to visit. Later, Mrs. Shu also brought. Have you been to Qi mansion with her concubine? Yes, but people will be rejected if they don't enter the door. The head of the Shu family snorted coldly, Shu Qing has something to hide from us. As soon as the words fell, the boy's report came from outside, Old Master, the old master of the 4th room asks to see you. Say CAO, and CAO will be here. The patriarch of the Shu family stood up slowly, flicked his robe, and said, invite people to the flower hall, and I'll be right here. When Shu Qing left, the face of the patriarch of the Shu family was also very ugly. He smirked and said in a low voice, you are really an idiot. You don't hide from the Mu family with your tail between your legs at this time, but you are rushing to recognize your relatives. Is it made of clay? The chief executive lowered his head, not daring to say a word. The patriarch of the Shu family was so angry that his chest was heaving. If his family was framed to join the army, or if he was framed with only one seedling, then he would never die with the other party. Even if he is a literati who cares about the overall situation, let alone Mu Shina and others. A martial artist who drinks blood. Naturally, there is revenge. Shu Wanyang was there, as long as the 4th house of the Shu family hides, and Mu Shi is far away in the north, that matter may be suppressed in such a muddled way. After 2 generations, who will remember this an old injustice? At that time, if the Mu family can still be as brilliant as before, the Shu family will come to recognize their relatives again. It must be at this time. She has always loved the concubine, but if she really wants to blow the pillow, then the Shu family will suffer from the enemy. This matter was originally done by Sifang, but the Mu family and Rongjun Palace may have put the crime on the entire Shu family. Sifang is just a side branch, and it is unreasonable for the entire Shu family to suffer for him. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 746. The patriarch of the Shu family is not a fool to lead the Shu family to stand upright. He knows that the most urgent task is to let the Mu family stop fire, otherwise there will be big troubles before the prince's ceremony. The Mu family and the royal family are related by marriage, so it may be fine, but the Shu family can't afford it good. The emperor doesn't like aristocratic families at all, even the Kui family, the first-class aristocratic families like the Lu family have to avoid the edge, let alone the third-class aristocratic families like the Shu family. The patriarch of the Shu family did not have the confidence of Shu Qing to withstand the pressure of the royal family, and because of this, the Shu family kept a low profile after the emperor ascended the throne, fearing that the emperor and queen would catch him and take the opportunity to avenge his offense against the queen. With his toes, he knew that Mu Yangling could not have much affection for the Shu family. The Shu family not only failed to help them when they were in trouble, but also harmed them. As long as the Mu family is fine, they will not have any affection for the Shu family. Good impression. As for Shu Wanyang, even if Sifang says she is kind and timid, people will always change. Sifang has not been in touch with her for 21 years, and once killed her. Among her natal families, there is no doubt who she will choose. The head of the Shu family really doesn't understand where the old lady of the 4th bedroom gets her confidence. As long as she asks her, Shu Wanyang will be grateful for her use. Sifang was obviously quite shrewd before. When did he become a fool? Although annoyed, things still have to be dealt with. The patriarch of the Shu family was different from Shu Qing, so he acted decisively and delivered a post to the Qi mansion the next day, and gave gifts to the Qi mansion, showing a low profile. Mu Yangling accepted the gift, but returned the post, and asked Zhu Liang to tell him that everything needs to wait until her father comes. Now the Mu family stays in the capital are old, weak, women and children, and Bowen's seniority is low, so it really can't be done. Host. The patriarch of the Shu family knew that Mu Yangling was afraid that Mu Bowen would be suppressed by them because of his low seniority, and Mu Yangling accepted the gift list, which showed that she didn't want to make things too ugly. The patriarch of the Shu family understood after thinking about it. Shu Wanyang's life experience is a double-edged sword. If it can hurt the Shu family, it can also hurt the Mu family, and the one who hurt the most is Shu Wanyang. When there is still room for change, she should be I don't want my mother to get hurt. The patriarch of the Shu family breathed a sigh of relief after thinking about it, and ordered Shu Qing to restrain himself after returning home, not to annoy Princess Rongjun. It is a good thing for the Mu family to have scruples, but it would be the most stupid thing in the world to force the Mu family to abandon their scruples thing. The matter has been out of Shu Qing's control, he can only listen to the patriarch, but he is full of anger and has nowhere to vent, so he can only point at Mrs. Shu, and it is inevitable to say some complaining words when he goes back, because it is the old lady who went to see Shu Wanyang this time. He did not inform him of the private decision of his wife and eldest daughter. Mrs. Shu was so angry by Shu Wanyang, and was beaten by twins. She was startled and angry, and her health was not good. She is old, and it is difficult to get back to health. But when she heard her husband blame her so much, the grievance and anger of the past few days burst out at once. She only felt the anger in her chest, the sweetness in her throat, and spit out a mouthful of blood. The main courtyard of the fourth room suddenly panicked, and the old lady was so angry that the old lady vomited blood. Shu Qing was also very angry. Didn't he just say a few words to her, and then he vomited blood? Why didn't he vomit when he was sent back by Rongjun Palace? Shu Qing was so angry that his chest heaved. Although Shu Mingxiang, who rushed over, blamed his father a little bit, he didn't dare to blame his father, for fear of making him angry too. The doctor shook his head slightly when he came out. Mrs. Shu had a stroke. She is getting old, and she may not live long. Now it will be winter again. After winter, she will live for a while longer, but she will not survive. She had to keep filial piety before passing the fourth house. Shu Fang was stunned, and she burst into tears. Her husband is now on the rise in his career, and filial piety is undoubtedly a heavy blow at this time. And whether it can be activated after 3 years is a question, and the Mu family is still poking there. Shu Qing obviously thought of this too, and he regretted it for a while. He only wanted Mingxiang as his only son. He and the old lady had been taking good care of them all these years. It was a pity for their lives, but it was also to buy more time and opportunities for their son. If they die, they have to keep their filial piety. Now is the period of the opening of the dynasty. It is easy to make political achievements, and it is much faster to be promoted than in times of peace and war. Now my son is at a juncture. Having said that, as long as there are no accidents in Shu Mingxiang's next business affairs, he can be promoted to another level and become the 4th rank. Why did Mrs. Shu rush to recognize Shu Wanyang? Don't you just want to make a connection for her son? Taking advantage of the 2 lines of Rongjun Wangfu and Mu's family, and with the help of Shu's family, his son's career in the future can be said to be smooth. But now, not to mention the smooth progress, it is a question of whether he can continue to be an official. Shu Qing pushed away the servants, ran in staggeringly, grabbed Mrs. Shu's shoulders, stared at her with burning eyes, gritted his teeth and said, "You have to live, live, Mingxiang is going to be promoted, for us son, you have to live for me." Mrs. Shu's eyes shone brightly, and she gave 2 woo-hoots from her crooked mouth, and nodded at him with difficulty. Then Shu Qing let her go, and said to Shu Mingxiang, who followed, "Let the doctor give you a hand, your mother prescribes medicine. If there is no medicine in the 4th room storehouse, please go to my family, we are willing to exchange it with something, no matter what, we must save your mother's life." Xu Mingxiang responded with a pale face. The fourth room was gloomy. They were busy protecting Madame Xu's life. They didn't pay attention to the Mu family for a while, and Xu Mingxiang's children were bullied outside, and they didn't dare to speak when they saw the house was in a mess when they came back. Now it has been reported in Beijing that the Xu family offended Princess Rongjun and the Mu family for some reason, and made Princess Rongjun's younger siblings extremely target the husband and daughter of the Xu family. Wherever the Xu family appears, there are Mu Bosi and Mu. It's good, but if you want to invite two people, just tell them that the Xu family is also invited, and they will definitely go. All of a sudden, the girls of the Xu family who are 10 years old and under 20 years old feel the unprecedented malice. A dozen or so of them couldn't beat two little kids. The brothers and sisters got together to sum up their experience and came to the conclusion that the twins of the Mu family were too thick-skinned and too young to use many methods. The most important thing is that they didn't know where they offended those two people. When they asked the elders were vague, and they knew at a glance that the elders had offended the adults of the Mu family. That's why the dragon and phoenix came to trouble them. But do you know the rules of the game? What does the adults' business matter to them? They are just juniors, okay. If the family is not on good terms, it will be fine if they don't play together. Does it need to keep targeting us like this? A few elder brothers and sisters went to complain to their brothers and sisters. The older children of the Xu family couldn't see it, so they found time to teach Mu Bosi a lesson, of course when do. This is also one of the reasons why the Xu family burst into tears. Although the other party is only 10 years old, he is good at horseback riding, archery, and fighting. One of their brothers with the best kung fu can be compared to the other side. If this is the case, it is not as good as Wendo. Mu Bosi was bullied outside, so he naturally wanted to pull his elder brother out, so Mu Boan satirized the Xu family's children with 1 against 5, and then went home with his younger brother. The patriarch of the Xu family only felt that his veins were twitching, and he strictly ordered the children in the family not to go out recently, and also asked the back house to reject those social gatherings. Recently, he stayed at home to study, embroider, and wait for the matter to be resolved. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 747. Li Jinghua didn't have time to pay attention to the lawsuit between the Mu family and the Xu family until concubine Xian entered the palace. Li Jinghua was also a little curious, wondering how the Mu family got into a fight with the Xu family. When Qi Ziyuan came to her place for dinner, he said with a smile, "Aling doesn't seem to like the Xu family. She noticed it 5 years ago, but she felt that Mu Yangling was doing it for herself, but combined with this incident, I'm afraid things are not that simple." Qi Ziyuan knew Xu Wanyang's identity when Mu Shi joined the army, and he guessed right about what the Xu family did to Xu Wanyang and the Mu family. The Mu Xu family comes from the 4th house of the Xu family. When Mu Shi joined the army, it was the Xu family's hands and feet. Don't worry about this matter, let them solve it by themselves. It's almost the same when they get angry in their chests. Li Jinghua was taken aback. What kind of enmity is this? A cold light flashed in Qi Ziyuan's eyes, and he said, it was the 4th house of the Xu family who did it. The other children of the Xu family who were officials in the court are still useful, but they were attached to Qin Fang back then and committed many things. If they are sincere, if I correct it, I will pretend that I don't know about those things, and if I commit the crime again, I don't mind to settle the old and new scores together. The old account that Qi Ziyuan talked about was about Xiaobeo's premature birth. Li Jinghua nodded slightly, and summoned Mu Yangling into the palace to meet her the next day. She has been silent all these years, which does not mean she has forgotten what happened back then. It was indeed her bad luck back then. Excuse me, after so many years, although she will not like them, she will not hate them too much. But now that she has the opportunity to make the Xu family unhappy, she naturally wants to intervene. So she hoped that Mu Yangling would take her with her when she vented her anger, as long as she could help, just ask. Seeing that she didn't shy away from the emperor, Mu Yangling knew that Li Jinghua didn't plan to make big moves, so he slapped the Shu family in the face, and hurriedly nodded in agreement. Before leaving, seeing that she had lost a lot of weight, he held her hand and said, "Next year, newcomers will be admitted to each palace one after another. How is your health?" Li Jinghua smiled wryly, and said, "The imperial doctor made an agreement a year ago, but I am not pregnant until now. I think there will only be Xiaobao in this life." This year, if Qi Xiaoyuan didn't live in the main hall and study room, he would come to her place and live like an ordinary couple. In the past 3 months, Qi Xiaoyuan has obviously paid more attention to sex. Li Jinghua vaguely guessed that he also wanted to give Xiaobao as a direct brother, so that he can be more helpful. After all, the Li family shows weakness and cannot give Xiaobao much help. But even with such frequent intercourse, she still gets pregnant every year. Li Jinghua has given up now and does not desire to have another child. Thinking of this, Li Jinghua sighed again, and said, "The emperor has few heirs, so I'm afraid it will be bad for the country. Later, help me to see if there are any girls who are strong and easy to give birth among the officials below, and give me a list." Mu Yangling looked at her with spirit, and said, "How could I look at that?" "It's true," Li Jinghua said worryingly, "but the daughters of officials are all sent to the palace, and it's not easy for me to ask the imperial doctor to feel their pulse." Mu Yangling whispered, "You can find a doctor girl, but does the emperor know about this?" Li Jinghua smiled and said, "The selection of concubines is a matter for the harem, so there is no need to notify the emperor." Mu Yangling looked at her distrustfully. Li Jinghua tapped her forehead, and said with a low laugh, You said you were clever but you became dull again. The list that can get to me will naturally pass the emperor's hand first. Whose daughters can enter the palace and whose daughters cannot enter the palace, it is natural that the emperor first selects the list before handing over the list to the empress. As for the number of those who can stay, the empress chooses how many people can stay. In fact, Qi Xiaoyuan doesn't like to use the harem to control the former dynasty, because it will easily lead to the seizure of the heir, causing chaos in the harem and the royal family. Li Jinghua also knows Qi Xiaoyuan well, and knows that the ones who will be sent to her in the end must be officials with little real power. Daughter. And what she has to do is to choose for Qi Xiaoyuan a concubine who is good in character and appearance and easy to raise, so that he can flourish. Although the selection of concubines will start after the spring of next year, the emperor and empress are now beginning to screen the list. The ladies in Beijing also know this, and they have been very active recently, hoping that they can be in the eyes of the emperor or empress. But the Li family has a way that no one else has. After the concubine enters the palace, the emperor still rests in the cunning palace more often. The concubine is also favored, but it will not surpass the empress in the short term. However, there are too few concubines in the harem, and there are only 2 of them, so it is impossible to compare them. Both the queen and the concubine Xian are very beautiful. Therefore, if an official wants to send his daughter to the palace, if the daughter's appearance is lower than that of the empress and concubine Xian, I'm too embarrassed to take it out. Therefore, recently, some beautiful little girls who are as gentle as water, glamorous and noble or delicate and cute are active in the capital, but the 2 little girls brought into the palace by Li Jian are both docile and obedient. Beautiful, but a little timid standing below, does not appear to be brilliant. Li Jinghua sneered, thinking she would let them into the palace if she was obedient. The Li family can only have her in the harem. If there are too many, not only will the emperor get bored, but she will no longer be the only one in the Li family. But Li Jian felt that Li Jinghua would not be pregnant again, and the eldest prince had few helpers. If the Li family could re-enter and give birth to a prince, it would only be good for the eldest prince in the future, and there would be no harm. There is no harm in this, and it is just Li Jian's coaxing words. Li Jinghua sneered as Li Jian and his people disappeared from sight. Li Qi sat in the wheelchair and said with a smile, "Don't worry, the queen. The Li family has no foundation in the capital. Everything depends on you. No matter how old the second uncle is, my heart has to be closed at this time." Li Jinghua let out a breath and said, "Brother, the Li family is relying on me now, but what about 10 or 20 years from now?" Li Qi smiled and said, "By then, the first prince will have grown up, so naturally you don't have to worry." Li Jinghua asked, "Xiaobao grows up, will our mother and son not be favored by the emperor?" Li Qi was stunned for a moment, then fell silent. Li Jinghua pointedly said, "All this was given by the emperor, so he can take it back naturally." "What your mother said is that I am short-sighted." Li Qi bowed slightly, looking at his younger sister who still had a young face. He had to admit that she had grown a lot. "So, the Li family will never allow a second woman to enter the palace," Li Jinghua said firmly with a cold gleam in his eyes. "If there are 2 women from the Li family in the harem, the balance will be broken. She knows her husband well, he won't like it, and even bringing her with her will be disgusted by him." Li Jinghua looked at the eldest brother's legs and said, "Brother, the emperor doesn't know much about some etiquettes, but you are very knowledgeable. I remember that you have almost searched all the books in our Li family." Li Qi smiled and said, "I knew what you were thinking when you wrote me a letter. This time I didn't come empty-handed, and I brought a cart full of books." A light flashed in Li Jinghua's eyes, and said, "Then you can stay for dinner tonight, the emperor has always wanted to see you." "Do you really think that she wrote Li Jian to come to the capital to win him over? Her goal was never Li Jian and the few Li family children he brought, but her amazingly talented brother. Her brother was once a genius of the Li family and the #1 heir of the Li family. He had to live in seclusion because of his broken legs, and had to hide his talents." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 748. Mushi hurried on his horse and arrived 5 days before the crown prince was appointed. He only brought dozens of guards and traveled day and night. Therefore, it took only 12 days to arrive at the capital from the north, 3 days earlier than expected. No one came to pick him up. Mushilma stood at the gate of the city and thought for a while, wondering if he could go to his daughter's place to freshen up first. The military advisor behind him seemed to know what he was thinking, and immediately said, "General, you should go to the palace to see the emperor." Mushi nodded with a sullen face, and pointed out that one person went to Qi Mansion to report to his wife and children, and he took the others to the palace. Mushi's arrival was beyond everyone's expectations, but the guards guarding the palace gate quickly reported the situation. The emperor, who was about to go to court, paused, then turned and went to the imperial study, saying, "General Mu, please come in." He thought that Mushi was in a hurry because there was a report from the military, but Mushi was really bored on the road, so he rushed a little faster, arriving 3 days earlier than expected. The emperor carefully looked at Mushi's expression, and seeing his helplessness under his beard, he twitched the corners of his mouth and waved his hand. "The general has worked hard all the way, why don't you go back to wash and rest?" If he had known, he would not have left the officials behind. "I came to see Mushi first, so I should let Mushi wait for him to finish his morning court." Mushi breathed a sigh of relief, then bowed and stepped back. Everyone in the previous court was discussing whether something happened, and the emperor was late for the court. This has never happened since he took the throne, so when the emperor arrived, they lowered their heads and listened carefully after 3 cheers, but the emperor didn't explain it, so this incident made a big fuss. Everyone raised their hearts, and only hoped that someone who didn't have a good eye ran into the emperor's sword at this time. Even Qi Heiran and Fan Zijin looked at the emperor worriedly. Qi Ziyuan twitched the corners of his mouth when he found out, and then sat down peacefully. Since he was tricked by your father-in-law, then you should be tricked by me. As for the others, the emperor closed one eye and pretended not to see it. So this time, the early court passed amid everyone's worries, until the chief eunuch called out to retreat. The emperor paused after getting up, looked at the kneeling people, and then suddenly realized, I forgot to say, General Mu of Xieying in Baidi has arrived in Beijing. King Rong, General Mu is your father-in-law, you can entertain him during this time, remember to take him to the Ministry of Officials for filing later. Qi Heiran agreed, got up, turned around and was about to run, but was grabbed by Fan Zijian and stared at him. What's the hurry? Go slowly. Running to serve his father-in-law in such a hurry, his body was too low, and everyone, what does my cousin think when he finds out? It's a pity that Qi Heiran didn't understand Fan Zijian's hidden meaning. He was in a hurry to go back to serve his father-in-law, so he waved his hands and waved back while running. Go slowly, I'll go back first. Fan Zijian stared at his back and was too angry to speak. When Qi Heiran ran back to Qi Mansion, Mu Shi had already carried the little bear and flew around the yard. The little bear hugged his grandfather's head excitedly, and carefully pulled his beard with his hand. Mu Shi hurriedly grabbed his little hand and coaxed, you can't scratch this beard randomly. The little bear smiled shyly, buried his head in Mu Shi's arms, and then coughed violently. His neck was red. Mu Shi patted his back worriedly, and Xu Wanyang took the child from his arms, saying, how about you, hurry up and take a bath, look at the child is fumigated. Mu Shi slept and ate all the way, rode on a horse, and slept with the horse. The wedding's horse urine smelled like horse dung, no wonder it didn't stink. Mu Shi chuckled, and Mu Yangling came out to greet him, and said, Father, the hot water is ready, go quickly. Mu Yangling took the little bear from Xu Wanyang's hand. Mom, take Dad over there, I'll go to the kitchen to see how the meal preparations are going. Mu Shi swept his eyes and asked, why are Bowen and Bosi Kijia missing? It has been about 35 minutes since he entered the mansion, and Aling has prepared hot water and a change of clothes for him. Why are the other 3 children still missing? Mu Yangling smiled and said, Bosi and Kijia followed Bowen to the academy. Mu Shi was surprised. Bosi and Kijia will go to the academy. It's not that he has no confidence in his son and daughter, but that these two can't even finish their husband's homework. He really can't imagine that they will take the initiative to go to the academy. Mu Yangling smiled and said, yes, Bosi and Kijia are quite sensible. Dad, you should go wash up first. Mu Shi dubiously followed Xu Wanyang to the backyard, and asked uncertainly, Bosi and Kijia really took the initiative to follow Bowen to the academy. Don't Bowen escort them there? That's not right, Bowen wouldn't do that. Let's not talk about whether Bowen can bet on the Dragon and Phoenix twins, just a little. Bowen won't bet on them. If these 2 little ones quarrel in the academy, the loss outweighs the gain. Xu Wanyang didn't know how to explain to her husband for a while, since the Xu family no longer appeared, although the 2 of them were released from the grounds. Where could they go without money? When they went shopping, they could only drool over the delicious and fun things. As for the big plan to make money, Kijia gave up after 2 days of hard work and still couldn't get a purse. They could only play with Xiao Xiang, but Xiao Xiang obviously got I have obeyed my mother's instructions, and I abide by the agreement. I can play with him, but I can't take his things, and I can't eat his delicious food. Moreover, although the 2 are only 10 years old, they are much older than Xiao Xiang, and they are elders. And were too embarrassed to snatch it, so they could only focus on the elder brother who was more likely to soften his heart. So, they followed Bowen to the academy every day. Bowen didn't study in the academy, he went to the academy to talk about scriptures, and he didn't want his younger siblings to go there to read. He just hoped that they could sit there quietly and listen to them talk. Sometimes they listen to a sentence more than read it. A 10-year book will still be useful. After washing himself clean, Mu Shi habitually picked up the knife to shave, thinking that his grandson seemed to like his beard very much, so he hesitated for a moment, put down the knife and stopped shaving. Xu Huanyang was folding his clothes. She was taken aback when she saw him running out with an unshaven beard, and couldn't help but look a few more times. Mushi was not very particular in the military camp, and he didn't shave if he thought it was troublesome, but as soon as he got home, he would shave his beard when he washed. When he was at home, he was always refreshed. It was the first time I saw the beard coming out. Mushi couldn't help but slow down when he put on his clothes, thinking of the nasty things that group of gentlemen in the army said. Does Huanyang also prefer my bearded appearance? Xu Huanyang took a second look and then stopped. While helping him tidy up his clothes, she whispered to him what happened after they arrived in the capital. When he heard that Bosi and Kiji lured Xiaoxiang to pry his own box, Mushi's expression turned cold, and when he heard that the Shu family came to the door, Mushi's eyes flashed even colder. He stretched out his hand and patted his wife, tenderly said, "You don't have to worry about these things, I will take care of them." Xu Huanyang frowned and said, "I don't care about the Shu family's affairs, but Bosi and Kijia can't let it go any longer, and it's my fault. These two children have been spoiled to the point of lawlessness, and when they return to the Northland, I will send them to experience the hardships, and let them know how difficult our previous life was." Mushi nodded. The two children are still young and have uncertain temperaments. As long as they are ruthless, they can still be broken. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 749. When Bosi and Kijia saw Mushi's eyes almost filled with tears, they threw themselves on him and couldn't get off him. They had a hard time these days, and if their father didn't come, they would consider running away from home. Mushi, who was still hard-hearted at first, saw the two children crying, hugged them with his arms, and said helplessly, "Come down quickly, you are all grown up, look at the tears and snot, what's the point?" Seeing his grandfather being hugged, Little Bear rushed over and squeezed in between the two of them, hugged Mushi's leg and raised his head to look at him. Mushi was afraid of crowding his grandson, so he hurriedly pushed the two children away, hugged the little bear into his arms, and gave the twin a look. "Your nephew is watching, don't you feel ashamed? Put away your tears." Bosi wiped away tears, rolled up his sleeves to show his father, and said bluntly, "Father, do you think I've lost weight, don't you?" Mushi squeezed his arm, smiled approvingly, "Well, it's much stronger." Bosi pouted and looked at him with dissatisfaction, but Kijia pulled his father and said, look at me, Daddy, do you think I'm a lot haggard? These days my daughter can't eat well, and can't sleep well." Mushi looked his little daughter up and down, and was even more satisfied. Kijia has grown up, and she's become much slimmer, just like a big girl. Bosi and Kijia stared at him. Mushi turned his head directly, and said to Mu Yangling, "Aling, help me make a post for the Shu family, let's make an appointment to meet." Mushi didn't want to procrastinate the matter, and wanted a quick solution. In order to please his father-in-law, Chi Heiran took the initiative to say, "Father, I'll go with you." Mushi was taken aback by Chi Heiran's shout, and it took him a long time to realize that he was calling him. Mushi blushed slightly, nodded in satisfaction and said, "Okay." Mu Yangling pursed his lips and smiled when he saw it. Chi Heiran hurriedly greeted his father-in-law, knowing that Mushi loves wine. He also asked Fan Zijian to get a lot of good wine privately hidden in restaurants. Xu Huanyang personally cooked a lot of delicious food for them, and Fan Zijian had a meal at noon when I came back. I was invited to have dinner together. The three of them drank and chatted at the dining table, and dealt with a lot of official business. Chi Heiran poured wine for Mushi from time to time, and Fan Zijian kept his eyes on Mushi, for fear that he would not be able to hold back the corners of his eyes when he saw Chi Heiran's dog-legged appearance. Gaff. At night, Chi Heiran groped into the room reeking of alcohol and fell on the bed, grabbing Mu Yangling's quilt. Mu Yangling was so smoked by him that he couldn't bear it, so he got up and pushed him aside. Seeing that he didn't even take off his coat, he woke him up while pulling his clothes, and said in a low voice, "It's all the smell of wine, you don't know what to do. Gotta go take a shower." Chi Heiran opened one eye to look at her, and said, "I'm drinking with my father-in-law. I'm too tired to walk, so I won't wash it. Even if you are accompanying me, I have to wash." Mu Yangling fanned the air, and said, "You smell it, the smell of alcohol is fine, and there is also the smell of sweat." Chi Heiran suddenly jumped up and pulled Mu Yangling under him, hugged her tightly, gave her a childish breath, and said, "It's all right now, you stink just like me." Mu Yang was furious, he struggled to get out of his arms, and turned him to the side. He was really going to get angry, but Chi Heiran had already turned over and fell asleep. Mu Yangling pouted and looked at him for a while, and could only resign himself to taking off his shoes and clothes, and twisted a wet towel to wipe his body. Chi Heiran woke up refreshed the next day. He had already forgotten what happened last night, and stretched out his arms to ask Mu Yangling to wait for him to get dressed, and kept urging, hurry up, we're going to see people from the Shu family in Yupanlu." Mu Yangling brought over the clothes he found for him last night, and while putting them on for him, he said, "Don't get drunk again today, or I'll move to the couch to sleep." Chi Heiran put on his clothes, looked at Mu Yangling with contempt, and said, "What do you know? My father-in-law asked me to drink that wine. If I didn't drink it, my father-in-law thought I didn't want to drink with him." Mu Yangling patted him, "My father is getting old and needs to drink less, you just don't want to persuade him, and you still have to find so much wine for him. Be careful next time my mother cooks for you, I will call you. She adds a handful of chili peppers to kill you." Chi Heiran shrunk his neck, quickly took her clothes and put them on her, awling, "I will wait for you to put them on." Mu Yangling dodged the skirt in his hand and pushed him away, "Hurry up, don't keep my father waiting." The Shu family was obviously also in a hurry to resolve this matter, so Mu Yangling got a reply the same day he sent the post, and the two agreed to meet in Yupanlu for a detailed discussion the next day. Mu Shi only brought Bo Wen and Chi Heiran with him, while the Shu family was accompanied by the head of the Shu family and Shu Qing and his son. Shu Qing and Shu Mingxiang saw Mu Shi for the second time, and they did not recognize each other at all. When Mu Shi sent Shu Wanyang back, it was Shu Qing who met him in person. Later, Mu Shi secretly rescued Shu Wanyang, and met Shu Mingxiang face to face when he fled. It is said that the memory should be deep, at least Mu Shi remembers these two. Human. But Shu Qing and his son really couldn't help Mu Shi. Looking at Mu Shi, who was unshaven and unable to see his face, the patriarch of the Shu family broke the silence first. He smiled and cupped his hands at Chi Heiran. "I have met King Rongjun, this is General Mu, right?" Shu Yuan, the patriarch of the Shu family. Mu Shi responded politely with his fists, and said, "Patriarch Shu." He shifted his gaze to Shu Qing, squinted his eyes slightly, and said, "Master Shu, don't come here without any problems. It's been more than 20 years since I left. I don't know if you still remember it?" "General." Shu Qing twitched the corner of his mouth and said, "It's hard to remember." Master Shu coughed lightly, gave Shu Qing a warning look, and took the lead to ask Mu Shi to sit down. They booked 3 boxes in Yupan building, and now they are sitting in the middle box, with a solid wood soundproof wall in the middle. As long as it is not loud roaring, the outside cannot hear the voice inside. Patriarch Shu glanced at the gentle and upright Mu Bowen. Thinking of the news he had inquired these days, he had to lament Sifang's good luck and bad luck. The son-in-law and his family were so offended that they could no longer offend them. Now I can only hope that the other party will not continue to pursue the matter, and the two parties will live in peace. Otherwise, if one is not careful, the Shu family will not only lose their reputation, but will also face enemies from both sides. And Mu Shi's request is also very simple. It's not that he doesn't want to seek justice for his wife, but that will definitely hurt Wanyang, so to deal with the fourth wife of the Shu family, he has to do it in private. The Shu family made him a promise. Shu Wanyang has nothing to do with the Shu family. In the future, no matter what the purpose is, the fourth house of the Shu family can no longer disturb the life of the Mu family. The two parties do not know each other when they meet. As for private matters, it depends on their own abilities. The reborn wife is farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 750. Shu Yuan didn't care about Sifang's interests at all. He was very angry that Shu Qing had made the entire Shu family suffer for Sifang. It's agreed, as long as Shu Qing has an opinion, can he still have an opinion in front of the power of the Shu family and the Mu family? Shu Qing's hand under the table tightened, but he really didn't object, and nodded in agreement, which was regarded as a covenant with the Mu family. Mu Shi just took a serious look at Shu Qing and Shu Mingxiang, then got up and left. Back in Qi Mansion, Mu Shi dragged Qi Heiran and Bo went to the study, saying, "The Shu family is too honest." He felt a little uneasy. Qi Heiran said, "Shu Yuan's son-in-law has known about it, and he is very cautious. It is not surprising that he agreed to our conditions. What about the fourth bedroom of the Shu family? He has repeatedly indulged the female family members of the Shu family to come to the door to recognize their relatives. Obviously, he is not a person who can clearly recognize the reality." Qi Heiran coughed lightly, lowered his voice and said, "I heard that Mrs. Shu is going to die. Maybe she won't be able to survive this winter." Mu Shi was stunned, thinking that Mrs. Shu was Wanyang's mother, and thinking about the events of that year, he felt both sad and happy for a moment. Seeing that his father didn't understand, Bo Wen explained, "Shu Qing was idle at home when the new dynasty changed, and although Shu Mingxiang was watching at the court, he was only from the fourth rank and has not been able to make any progress. My son heard that he has done a good job recently. The assessment given to him by his superiors is excellent, and he may be promoted to a fourth-rank official when he reports on his duties early next year, but if Mrs. Shu dies at this time, then he will have to observe mourning for 3 years. Whether he can recover in the future is a question. Mu Shi is a military commander, so he doesn't need to be restrained if he is not a senior official." He blinked and said, "That is to say, if Mrs. Shu dies, Sifang might not have a chance to make his mark." Mu Bowen laughed and said, "At least it's very difficult for my son to get ahead. Although he is gentle, it doesn't mean he has no temper, otherwise he wouldn't have investigated the Shu family's affairs so clearly. Sifang is afraid of our revenge. He will not dare to provoke us no matter how unwilling he is now. Father, in fact, we don't need to do anything, just wait and see how things change." Mu Shi looked at Mu Bowen, who had grown into an adult, and sighed, "You have grown up. Since this is the case, I will leave this matter to you." He got up and said, "You can't control your younger siblings, then take care of things outside." Bowen blushed, and lowered his head in shame. "I made my father worry. Don't worry, I will take care of the Shu family's affairs." Mu Yangling blinked in surprise. "Is this the end?" Qi Heiran hugged her with his eyes closed and said, "Father-in-law has already talked to them straight to the point, so what can we do if we don't finish?" As soon as he sat down, he asked Shu Qing why he used his power for personal gain to enroll the Mu family in the military. With this enmity, even if the mother-in-law is from the Shu family, Shu Yuan and Shu Qing will not be able to make any demands. Qi Heiran patted her lightly and said, "Married from husband, mother-in-law is now Mu Shu." Mu Yangling pouted, "Then why can't I solve it? I have a higher status than my father, so why don't they want to listen to me?" Qi Heiran said, "As it should be, you are a married daughter of the Mu family, and your name is not right, and your mother-in-law is here, so they will not give you face if they hold your mother-in-law." He patted Mu Yangling and said, as a consolation, he said, "Don't be sad, I will listen to your words in the future." "Can that be the same?" But Mu Yangling didn't tell him apart. Seeing that he was so tired that he was snoring slightly, he asked in a low voice, "I haven't seen what you're doing recently, why are you so tired?" Chi Heiran turned over and said, "Serving father-in-law is a physical labor. These 2 days, Chi Heiran is even more attentive than Bowen, his own son, running up and down. If Bowen is Mu Shi's own son, then Chi Heiran stands beside Mu Shi, and others might think that he is the eldest son of the Mu family. Steward. In just 2 days, although Mu Shi only went to the Ministry of Officials once in Beijing, everyone knew him. There is no way, the three of them will inevitably bump into people while walking on the street. Mu Shi is walking ahead, and standing behind him is a handsome young gentleman. Standing side by side next to the young gentleman is the famous Rong Jun King of Deqi. If so, everyone was surprised for a moment. The key is that the always stern-faced King Rong is now smiling, leading the way for the people in front with a three-point flattery, while introducing the customs along the way. This has to be said to be a terrifying thing. Everyone can't stare directly at each other, but can only look at each other secretly. With a beard and a stalwart figure, the person who can make Daki's second noble King Rong put down his figure and take a step back to entertain, the answer is ready to come out, the father-in-law of King Rong Jun. It turns out that King Rong is also afraid of his father-in-law. It turns out that King Rong also wants to please his father-in-law. Everyone stared at Mu Shi secretly, admiring him in their hearts. However, there are also some people who look at him and feel that Chi Heiran is too flattering and embarrassing to the royal family. The current patriarch of the Chi family really wants to talk to Chi Heiran, but after all he is not brave enough, so he can only remind him vaguely when meeting the emperor. 2 sentences. I hope Chi Ziyuan can persuade Chi Heiran to pay attention to the face of the royal family. Chi Ziyuan's face turned gloomy all of a sudden. The patriarch of the Chi clan stopped talking immediately. He didn't dare to say any more. He couldn't help but slander in his heart when he left the palace. Just pamper him, even more than your own son. Let's see what you can pet flowers come. Chi Ziyuan's anger was not directed at the head of the Chi clan, but at Chi Heiran. The eldest brother is like a father. Chi Ziyuan really raised Chi Heiran as a son, but Chi Heiran rarely listened to him since he was a child. Even if he agreed with him in business, he still had to pick out some faults or give a few words back. When have you obeyed him? Not to mention serving him step by step. Chi Ziyuan was so old and only received this kind of treatment when he was seriously injured by poisoning last time, but at that time Chi Heiran only gave him a medicine bowl or something, just once or twice. Chi Ziyuan suppressed the anger in his heart, and told himself, Mu Shi is an elder, how can he compare with him? But the next day, the rumors that King Rong accompanied General Mu to Daming Mountain and rented a sedan chair by himself spread into the palace. Chi Ziyuan continued to endure. On the 3rd day, King Rong accompanied General Mu to visit all the frontier officials and officials who had worked with him before. In order not to disturb them, King Rong was willing to send people to the door. I went to the small tea house next to me and waited alone. As soon as General Mu came out, he led the horse to pick him up. His filial piety to Chengdu can be called the most filial son-in-law in a century. Chi Ziyuan, who was dizzy because of the prince's conferment ceremony, couldn't bear it anymore, and called Chi Heiran into the palace overnight, saying that he had something important to discuss. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Reborn Wife is Farming. Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 751. Chi Heiran hurried into the palace. Chi Ziyuan saw him panting, and the anger in his heart barely calmed down. He threw him a bunch of things, and said, I heard that you have been very free recently, so I will help you with these things. Let's deal with it. Chi Heiran blinked, and sensitively felt the displeasure of his elder brother. Since his elder brother ascended the throne, he has always been I in private, except for calling himself I to him in court. He nervously pulled the thing over, and couldn't help frowning as soon as he opened it, and after roughly flipping through all the folders, he pouted dissatisfiedly, "Brother, isn't this the work of the Ministry of Rights?" Chi Siu stared at him far away. "In 2 days' time, your nephew's ceremony will be held. What's wrong with you, as an uncle, suffering for him? These are all submitted by the Ministry of Rights for review. You should hurry up and finish them at dawn tomorrow to send it down." Chi Heiran opened his mouth wide. If he was asked to get something from the Ministry of Military Affairs, the Ministry of Punishment, he still has patience. The Ministry of Rights. It's not that he doesn't want to share the burden for his elder brother, but that he is afraid that he will make a mistake if he doesn't understand the etiquette department. Chi Xiuyuan picked up a bag at hand and threw it at his head. Chi Heiran leaned back, and the bag fell on his chest with a snap and fell to the ground. Because he was wearing clothes, it didn't hurt. "You wait, your father-in-law is very hard-working, but he pushes back and forth when he does some errands for me. If you don't understand, you don't know how to ask? When you go out and turn left, there will be officials from the Ministry of Rituals on duty in the meeting hall," Chi Xiuyuan said while throwing the booklet at him. In the hall, apart from the sound of the booklet being thrown on the body, it was the sound of Chi Xiuyuan scolding Chi Heiran. "I think you are idle. Tell me, why don't you come to Beijing? It's been a long time, except for the first half a month. You have been diligently going to the court, and you will have a court meeting in the next few days. I am so busy in the palace that I can't wait for one person to be divided into 3 people, but you are fine. Wander around the world, and go to Daming Mountain. I am also interested in going to a tea house for a day." Chi Heiran felt very wronged, and he distinguished, "Brother, I didn't go to play for myself, I went with my father-in-law. He came to the capital with great difficulty, and he couldn't stay long, so I naturally want to be a landlord." It was good that Chi Heiran didn't refute, but when he refuted, the anger that had already subsided rose up again, and he threw the booklet in his hand at him non-stop, and shouted, "It's reasonable to cooperate with you. General Mu is going to Beijing. Congratulations to the Crown Prince. How do you know that people must want to go out and play instead of staying at home to enjoy the family happiness? I still think about you, and you are exhausted when you come to Beijing, so I let you rest, but you need to rest, is it? I see that you are alive and well." Now Chi Xiuyuan almost said, "I think about you, but you only think about your father-in-law. Have you ever thought about me as a big brother?" Fortunately, Chi Heiran was not stupid enough to need Chi Xiuyuan to speak directly. He blinked, bent down to pick up the notebooks, then walked out with a pile of notebooks, and said with a desolate face, "Then I'll go to the side to read the notebooks." Chi Xiuyuan snorted coldly, and found that he was sweating all over, and most of the fatigue in the past few days had dissipated, and he became refreshed. Sure enough, scolding Heiran is good for physical and mental health. And Chi Heiran, who went out with his head drooping, looked at Jizi in his arms and sighed faintly, not without pride in his heart. The elder brother was actually jealous of his father-in-law. Chi Heiran's face was pained, and he walked towards the meeting hall of the side hall with great pride in his heart. These papers are the final confirmation of the officials of the Ministry of Rights for the ceremony of entrusting the ceremony 2 days later. Chi Heiran noticed early on that although he took away more than 1/3 of the papers, there were quite a lot of papers left unreviewed on the elder brother's imperial table. If Chi Xiuyuan was alone, no matter how capable he was, he would not be able to review it tonight. "I didn't sleep all night, and I have to continue tomorrow, and I have to toss about wearing a dress to worship the heavens and receive the title the next morning. Calculated in this way, my eldest brother has not slept for almost 2 days and 2 nights. Chi Heiran was distressed and worried, and when he went to the officials of the Ministry of Rights, he urged them to hurry up. The officials on duty at the Ministry of Rights were heartbroken when they saw that Chi Heiran had pinched the vermilion pen to review the paper, and they were horrified. The emperor actually trusted the king of Rongjun so much. This paper can only be reviewed by the imperial pen. Several officials on duty couldn't help swallowing their saliva. Chi Heiran frowned and looked at them, who were clearly distracted, and said with a frown, "Did your lords not hear my question? Is the position of this courtier confirmed?" A few people came back to their senses quickly, and said cautiously, "Please ask the prince to read the scriptures, and I will check it again." Chi Heiran nodded. That's what he wanted to do. As long as he read the scriptures once, several people checked them together, corrected any problems on the spot, and circled them if there was no problem. In this way, the speed was much faster and the accuracy was guaranteed. Chi Heiran was so immersed in it that he didn't notice the passage of time. After the last paperwork was approved, he realized that his spine was sore. Only then did Chi Heiran feel sleepy and hungry, and when he looked at the other adults, his eyes were slightly closed and he was drowsy. Chi Heiran waved his hand to call for the servant, who quickly blinked to make the soreness disappear, and trotted up, "My lord. Go get some food for the adults." The servant bowed down. Chi Heiran tidied up the folders, and went back to look for his eldest brother with them. Chi Ziyuan did not rest, he was rubbing his eyes with his eyes closed. When a servant took scissors to cut the candle light, Chi Heiran glared at him. The servant's heart trembled. He hurriedly put away the scissors and bowed back. Chi Heiran put the folder on the imperial table, went around behind Chi Ziyuan and rubbed his temples for him. Chi Ziyuan woke up instantly with a force different from that of a court maid. Chi Ziyuan opened his eyes and looked at him in surprise, then closed them slightly. Eyes, asked, "How do you know this?" Chi Heiran said proudly, "That's what Aling presses for me when I'm tired." Chi Ziyuan gave a hum and said, "No wonder. Brother, let's go here first tonight. The waiter said that you haven't slept much these days, and you will bring Xiaobao to sacrifice to heaven the day after tomorrow, so it's better not to go there with dark eyes." Chi Ziyuan remained silent. Chi Heiran said, "I won't come out of the palace today, I will help you deal with all the papers." "It's rare," Chi Ziyuan said flatly, "you will feel sorry for big brother." Chi Heiran blushed, and muttered in a low voice, "When did I stop feeling sorry for you? This isn't the first time I've entertained my father-in-law. I got a little nervous and forgot to tell you. Besides, I'm doing this to give my future set an example for my son-in-law, and he will have to serve me like this in the future." Chi Ziyuan snorted coldly and asked, "Where is your daughter?" Chi Heiran choked, and said, "Brother, don't worry, Aling's next child will definitely be a girl." Chi Ziyuan immediately opened his eyes and smiled slightly. "Is the younger brother and sister pregnant?" "Their brothers and heirs are all a little thin, and they all have only one son, so he will be happy as long as he hears that he is pregnant." Chi Heiran chuckled and said, "Hurry up, hurry up. The reborn wife is farming." Author, Yu Yuzu. Chapter 752. Chi Ziyuan's good mood disappeared in an instant. If Chi Heiran hadn't been strong enough to press comfortably, he would have asked the guards to beat this man out. It's really too disgusting. It made him happy for nothing. Chi Ziyuan collapsed on the chair with his eyes closed, and said coldly, "Your sister-in-law and I are not in good health. The prosperity of the Chi family depends on you and Aling. You should also take care of your children. Why should I let you?" Aling took Xiaoxiang to the southwest to accompany you. Chi Heiran looked at Chi Ziyuan, who suddenly turned cold. He grinned, and said, "Brother, I know, it's for the heirs, it's not because I came to Lingnan. I'm too busy, I'm a little bit homeless. Don't worry, I'll go again this time. I am sure that state affairs and family affairs will not be delayed." Chi Ziyuan said flatly, "It's good that you know." Chi Heiran secretly stuck out his tongue on the top of Chi Ziyuan's head. Of course he knew his elder brother's worry. Chi Ziyuan's body was injured by the poison. Although he has almost healed up now, he was poisoned after all and was weaker than ordinary people. There are not many children, but it is impossible for such a huge empire to rely on Xiaobao alone. In the future, Xiaobao's brothers and cousins will help him. Naturally, the more offspring they have, the better, at least not just Xiaobao and Xiaoxiang. If the two brothers had poor offspring and the offspring of Qi Shaosheng and the two brothers were prosperous, it might not be certain that the big Qi would fall into their hands after 2 generations. After all, even if they didn't want to admit it, those two were the closest blood to them. Of course Qi Heiran also wanted to create a human being, and he had worked tirelessly in Canaan. For this reason, he and Aling also asked Imperial Physician Wang to have a look. Wang Imperial Physician said that both of them were fine and in very good health. As for why they were not pregnant, the Imperial Physician can only attribute it to the fact that fate has not arrived. Qi Heiran rubbed Qi Xiaoyuan's forehead while sighing, "Where can I ask for this fate?" Qi Xiaoyuan was pressed into a drowsiness by Qi Heiran, thinking of his younger brother saying that he would not go back today. He pushed his hand away, got up and picked out the first base and pushed it aside, saying, "You watch first, I'll go to rest first." Gone. Qi Xiaoyuan turned and went into the inner room. The servants were busy helping him to change clothes. He didn't take a bath, he just pulled the quilt and lay down, almost fell asleep as soon as his head touched the pillow, leaving only Qi Heiran staring at the empty hall folds on the table. The servant stepped forward in fear, and said in a low voice, "My lord, do you want to take a rest too?" Qi Heiran thought that new notebooks would be delivered at dawn, so he waved his hand and asked him to set up a table and chair for him, and he took the notebooks to review. Because of the entrusting ceremony, the court meeting has been suspended since yesterday, and if there are important matters to report, they can go directly to the palace to report to the emperor, so Qi Xiaoyuan does not need to get up at 5 o'clock, and Qi Heiran will not let the servant wake him up after he falls asleep. Let him fall asleep until it was bright outside, and the left and right ministers and several important ministers came to see him. Qi Heiran yawned and asked the servants to wake the emperor up, and he lay down on the table and did not move. Qi Xiaoyuan came out refreshed. This was the day he had had the most sleep in the past few days. He stepped forward and kicked his stupid brother with his toes. Seeing that he was not moving, he grabbed him by the back collar and picked him up. Qi Heiran was really pretending to be asleep. He sighed and stood up to attention. "Brother, I'm hungry, can I eat first and then discuss business?" "Don't waste time, ask someone to bring breakfast, go and invite Mr. Zhuoxiang and the others, and we will talk while eating." Qi Xiaoyuan was very eloquent in the palace, so at this time, naturally, no unsightly servant came out to say that this was against the rules. This is the imperial power. When the imperial power is weak, the rules set by the royal family are the rules. When the imperial power is above everyone, the words spoken by the emperor are the rules. When Qi Heiran followed Qi Xiaoyuan to wash, he grabbed a servant and said, "Go and tell the guard at the door to send someone to the Qi mansion to tell the princess that the king has something to do in the palace, so he won't be leaving the palace today. Let her arrange things in the house by herself." Qi Xiaoyuan stopped in his tracks, turned around and said, "Let eunuch Wan go, you can call any servant to inform." Can she believe it, just in time, let him bring your county king's dress to the palace. Don't leave the palace tonight already, follow me directly to sacrifice to heaven tomorrow. Eunuch Wan hurriedly answered yes in a low voice, and looked at Qi Heiran, meaning that if you have anything else to say, you should hurry up and send a message to you. Qi Xiaoyuan didn't care about the two of them, and left straight away, while Qi Heiran pulled eunuch Wan aside and told him in a low voice, "The matter of Jishan and the prince's conferment is important, and the son is still young. You tell the princess, no matter what. We can't let him enter the palace, and I'll pick her up at the gate of the palace after making arrangements for the person tomorrow." Eunuch Wan's brows twitched, and he felt that this was hard work, but after careful recollection, he saw that King Rong's love for his concubine did not find anything wrong. Down. Qi Heiran didn't return all night, and Mu Yangling was still worried that something serious happened in the palace, and was thinking of someone to ask, when Eunuch Wan came. Mu Yangling comforted the little bear who was pestering him to ask his father to take him to ride a horse, and said in a repeated voice, "Hurry up and invite people in." With outsiders around, little bear became quiet. He opened his round eyes to look at Eunuch Wan. Eunuch Wan subconsciously showed him a big smile, bent down and saluted, "I've seen the princess, I've seen the young prince." Mu Yangling returned half a salute, and said, "Eunuch Wan, you are being polite. Do you have any orders from the emperor?" Eunuch Wan is the chief eunuch of Qianqing Palace, who is in charge of Qi Ziyuan's affairs. Mu Yangling has never met him a few times, and he doesn't have a deep friendship. He often meets Eunuch Wei of Cunning Palace. He usually comes to her mansion to pass on messages. Except for the little inner eunuch who was Eunuch Wei, Eunuch Wan brought the emperor's edict every time he came. Eunuch Wan knew that the emperor trusted the king of Rongjun and the princess of Rongjun, so he was very polite in front of Mu Yangling. Hearing this, he said with a smile, "The emperor asked the servant to pass a message to you, saying that the palace is busy, and the king of Rongjun must be retained to help. Today in the evening, King Rong won't leave the palace, and he asked his slaves to bring King Rong's dress into the palace, saving the time of leaving the palace." Mu Yangling hurriedly turned around and asked Li Shun to get Qi Heiran's dress, which was the heaviest dress for the county king, and she didn't wear it easily, so she found it out early, washed it, dried it, and put it in the cabinet at this time. Mu Yangling turned around and asked Eunuch Wan after finishing his orders, "What other orders does the emperor have?" The emperor only explained this matter, but it was King Rongjun who asked his servants to pass a few words to the princess. "You say?" "The prince said that the son is still young, and I'm afraid he won't be able to bear the heavy ceremony of offering sacrifices to heaven and the crown prince's conferment, so I ask you to make arrangements for the son. No matter what, you can't bring the son into the palace." Mu Yangling blinked to signal Eunuch Wan not to say any more, but it was already too late. She saw her son's eyes filled with tears quickly, and he looked up at his mother abruptly. Mu Yangling immediately raised his head to prevent him from noticing, but the little bear, the movement was sudden and fast. He saw his mother's evasive movement, and he found the exit in a moment of grievance. He threw himself into Mu Yangling's arms, hugged his mother's thigh tightly, and burst into tears with a wow. The cry was earth-shattering, it was just smelling sad, and those who saw it wept.